And here we are. We are live on Mermaid FM. Hi, everyone. This is Mermaid, and I'm here to do part two of Serotonia, my anxiety story. This is actually going to be in quite a few different installments. I listened to my stream from last night, which was part one, and I basically went from like childhood to high school with my anxiety journey, and I did not realize that Twitch had cut out like most of the beginning of my story. So I feel like tonight I'm gonna have to just kind of just give you all the backstory on that before I go into the other stuff that I want to talk about. But if this is your first time listening to Serotonia, this is just basically a therapy for me. And if you find me, you find me. I'm not really broadcasting this to a lot of people that I know. I think I've posted like a link on Twitter, but I don't really have a lot of people on Twitter. That's just like a place for me to follow celebrities, and I have like some close people on there. Not a lot of people, I don't, like I said last night, I don't think people truly know who I am or what I go through. They just see what they want to see and what I want them to see. But this is a little bit more personal, and this is something that I've been dealing with and something that I want to talk to people about. And so, welcome to Serotonia. I'm so glad that you all are giving me the chance to do this. I guess I make my own chance of doing it, but like I said, I'm Mermaid. Welcome. Backstory from last night was that I have been an anxiety sufferer for most of my life, and it started when I was a child. I had no clue at all that there was anything wrong with me. I have mental illness on each side of my family, so I kind of perceive that to be a norm. But what you didn't hear, I'm not really sure why Twitch cut it off, but what you didn't hear is that when I was little, I would watch Unsolved Mysteries, and my anxiety would ramp up so high that I would shake and sweat and get sick. And I was like deathly afraid to go to sleep every night or like stay at other people's houses that I didn't know. I had a lot of like complexes and issues with that, and then I always thought like somebody was going to break into my house during the day and kill me. And I still feel like that sometimes. Like I'll be sitting on my couch and think that somebody's going to shoot me outside of the window. Thank you, Robert Stack and Unsolved Mysteries, for giving me anxiety issues throughout my whole life. But I mean, I have the roots for anxiety, I guess. I always had them. It was hereditary, but I think everybody has it to some degree, but it just depends on what triggers you. And Unsolved Mysteries triggered me so badly, and that started it. And then living next to storm sirens really triggered my weather phobias, and I would freak out, shake, throw up, cry, couldn't sleep. I would like just literally sit in the floor watching the Doppler, like my whole body shaking. I would call the weather station for closure. I had your typical run of the mill anxiety. And what upsets me about this so much is like I feel so sad for young me is that nobody recognized that. And when I was that young, living, in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, nobody really talked that much about mental health. And that was just not something that a lot of people were aware of, especially not in kids. Like I was just such a frightened child. Nobody really, thought anything about it. So that's the deal with that. So that's the backstory. And then if you didn't hear part one, I had talked about like the worst breakup I ever had, which was my high school relationship, and how I developed social anxiety from that experience and not being able to trust others, and that therefore set me forth into the world to be awkward, for the rest of my life. Like I would be overly charismatic, but I would also be awkward too. So that was part one. I have been a little bit sick, so I had like this stupid coughing fit toward the beginning or the end of my stream last night, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna end this, and it was running 30 minutes anyway. Um, but I am sad that Twitch cut that off. I want to think that's because I had music and I wanted to play music in these segments, but I'm afraid that it's going to cut off now and like kind of take away from the things that I'm saying. So I'm not going to play music anymore. But tonight I'm here to go into my second part, which I said might be a few installments, but I have my wine and it's just me and the microphone and my viewers, whoever you are. Whoever you are, feel free to say hey. Um, I'm drinking red wine, and I haven't had red wine in a while because, well, I haven't really had any alcohol in quite some time because I have been back on an antidepressant. And that's kind of hard for me to even say, to like think that other people are going to hear. I'm not ashamed of it. I just it's hard for me to admit defeat sometimes, and to say that my anxiety got so bad that it like carried me away and I needed to get some, medical assistance. But this is my therapy. Talking to you all is my therapy. So here I am. But um I've been on antidepressants for about 2 weeks now. And that was just the amount of time for the doctor to tell me, hey, you're going to notice some changes. So I am still suffering and I'm still going through a lot of things. And it sucks. But, um, this is my story. And when we talk about how much more my anxiety manifested, after the whole, like, instance of the breakup in college, I had also had some car wrecks. I was in 2 car wrecks in high school. And so I had anxiety about back roads and I had anxiety just about like turning curves. So I still have that sometimes in a way. Um, like if it's rain, like I don't like to drive in the rain. I don't like small roads. Like I have to hold on to the handles by the top of the door half the time if I'm in a car and I'm feeling like scared. I usually hold on to something. And that that has been one of the most crippling aspects of my problem, is because I've been so afraid to drive and go anywhere a lot of times, and sometimes it still manifests with me, but I've gotten better with it. Like I moved more to like a metro-ish area, so I'm forced to face that fear a lot and like drive in busier settings. As opposed to when I lived in the small town, it was nothing but back roads, and so I was afraid of like going anywhere a lot of the time. And when I look back on it, when I did drive around there, it just all seemed like a blur. I think because my fear was like driving me the entire time. So like if I had to go anywhere, I was in fear the entire time. But I just I was always so scared behind the wheel. Like I always remembered how sore my hands would be because I would be gripping the wheel so tightly, and I would like sometimes if it was a long trek, I would like wear calluses, not calluses, blisters in my hands because I would be holding the wheel so tight. And, I've lived with sweaty palms like my entire life. I think it's because I'm such a nervous person. But I like have always had sweaty palms, and I've always like had that issue with like gripping the wheel and gripping it too tight, or like digging into my leg when I'm riding with someone that I'm not used to. And I didn't really get over that until I met my husband, because he's such a great driver, and he just ended up driving me most of the places that I was going. Like I didn't really have to drive very much. And so I had to get used to a lot of things. I had to get used to a lot more traveling after we became a family, and like going, like living away from family and then going to see other family members. So I kind of had to get used to it, and I'm happy to report that I do dig my leg a little bit less, and if I need to go somewhere, I typically go, and I don't cancel very many appointments anymore because of rain or snow. So I'm doing a lot better with that. But that was a facet of my anxiety, and it spawned one of my more memorable panic attacks, which was after I got with my husband. We were meeting some friends to go to a swimming hole in the country, and we were on a road that I didn't know, and I don't really know what happened. It was just like I got this sense of impending doom. Like I felt like if we go here, I'm gonna die. If we go to this swimming hole, something's gonna happen to me, or a car's gonna hit us, or whatever. So, like I would say, we were about 15 minutes away. We'd been on the road for like 45 minutes, and I had felt it looming the entire time. But I was just trying not to say anything. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna sound like such a freak, if I say anything else. So I it got to that point that I was hyperventilating, and I could not breathe anymore. And I was like blacking out, cold sweat. I always sweat. Like, you're probably like, God, she sweats. Like, always sweat and break out and shake and can't breathe. Um, so he had to like park at this parking lot at a church and fan me down. And I just remember laying there with the air blasting on me, and I just felt so weak that I couldn't do anything. And we didn't go to the swimming hole. He drove me home, and I went to sleep, and I think I slept for like, I don't know, 5, maybe 6 hours after I got done. And having this episode, which at the time, like I said, I knew nothing about anxiety or panic or why it was happening to me at all. I didn't even know like the depths of my family history with it. I just kind of took it as like what is happening to me. Um which back then we were smoking a lot of weed, and I think that actually made things a lot worse for me, which if they do wonderful things for other people, and I am not against it at all, but it literally drove me insane a lot of the time. Like it would just thrive off of my panic and would make things so much worse. And that is what prompted me not too long after to just stop. But, everybody has their phases, everybody tries stuff, whatever. But after that, I just like it kind of became a strain on my relationship with him. Um Not to him, it didn't. And I think I had like manifested it in my head that I was going to be a burden because I had this mental problem that I didn't know how to handle, and I didn't want to tell my family about it. I didn't want to say anything to anyone. He was the only person that really knew because he was there with me during the panic attack, and I just felt like a burden to him. And I never really said anything. I never really wanted to talk about it because I didn't want the confrontation. I didn't even want to speak it into existence or like put anything to his head like, oh, you're not going to be able to handle this. If you want a future with me, I'm just going to be a basket case. But then came one of the worst nights of my life. And it was also something that I didn't really tell a lot of people about. But he and I and a friend of mine went to a store at night, which was like this big department store. And she was looking for a new car radio, and he was with her because he was going to help her install it. And I wasn't really feeling like myself when we were going. And I remember walking into the store, and they have like these fluorescent lights. The lights were really like working me, like giving me a headache. I couldn't really see. And so I walked back there with them, and they were looking in the car stuff, obviously. So behind it was this tire and lube center, and there was like a front desk and a water fountain. And I was with them, and I started getting this like pain in my side, and I didn't know what was going on. I just kept getting this pain. It kind of felt like a menstrual cramp or whatever. So I bypassed it. And so I was like, okay, this pain's bugging me, and I'm just somebody who feels normal a lot of the time. So when something's like awry, I kind of panic about it, like, oh my gosh, something's wrong with me. This spawned something else. But full story, I was like looking down at the floor trying to calm down, and I guess someone had spilled red paint in that area and it had dried to the floor. So when I looked at it, I thought, oh my gosh, there's blood on the floor. Well, I had already started to go into panic mode, and I don't know if I like hallucinated or something. I looked at the blood on the floor and like kind of went out of it. And that's the first time like my mind has ever taken me somewhere else. I looked down at the floor and I'm like, oh, um, I must be like bleeding. And I knew it was paint, but I also thought it was blood, so I kind of freaked out. And I turned around and I told my boyfriend at the time and my friend, I was like, I'm just gonna go and get a drink of water. And so I walked back into the tire and lube center and I looked to my right and I grabbed a cup and I went over to the water fountain, and that is the last thing I remember. And when I woke up, my boyfriend, who's my husband now, was sitting over me. There was actual blood on the floor, and everybody was freaking out. The store staff was sitting around me. My boyfriend was like, his face was like sheet white. I had blacked out in the store and had hit my head. They said that I'd like completely fell over like a stone statue to the floor. I was passed out for maybe like, I don't know, 15, 20 seconds. Um, my boyfriend at the time, my husband, said he thought that I was dead. And that was the scariest thing, to be honest, that I could have ever heard, was that he thought I was dead. And so I went to the hospital and they told me that I was just having like ovulation pains, but that was really scary, and that instance kept me so hidden away and like kept me inside for a long time to where I didn't want to go and do anything. It triggered all of the other anxieties and made me become a complete shell of a person for quite a while. Like it took me moving out of the place I was living to, which wasn't the small town, by the way. It took me moving out of there um to improve that, but that led into agoraphobia. I would hardly ever even drive. I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want to drive. I didn't want to be around people. I didn't want to smoke. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to be around him and stay inside, and I didn't hardly talk to anyone. I just literally stayed inside, and I was so ashamed of all of it because when I fell, I cracked my eye bone, and I had this. I've actually still got a huge scar on my eye from falling and cutting my face, and I was so ashamed of it, and it broke my heart. And I still, at that point, nobody thought that this is a mental thing. This is, this was panic. This was anxiety. She freaked out. Nobody knew what was wrong with me. I went to specialists after that, like women's specialists, to find out what was going with my reproductive system because I was having the cramps. But that wasn't like that wasn't the problem, and it took everyone so long to figure out what the problem was. Um I did not pass out again until I'd say about 3 years ago. I was laying in bed and I was Googling like my random symptoms. And Google is possibly the worst trigger of all. And Google is half the reason why I'm back on medication. And that's another story. But the other time I passed out is because I was Googling, and a lot of things for cancer started popping up, and it would freak me out. I went into a panic, and I got up out of the bed, middle of the night. Everybody was asleep. I got up out of the bed and wasn't feeling well. I was going to go to the bathroom and get a cup of water, and I guess I just passed out and slid onto our bedroom floor with the bedroom rug. I had a carpet burn from my forehead down my nose to my lip. Um, I don't know how my husband woke up because he sleeps like a rock, but he woke up. He was holding me yet again. I woke up crying. I didn't know what had happened. And I'd passed out because my anxiety ran away with me. And the passing out thing is scary. That's why I always have to put myself in situations where I keep my anxiety at bay because I'm always afraid that I'm going to get myself into a situation that I'm going to pass out and, maybe I will hurt myself worse than I did before. And that's I've just experienced so much with it that it's really really scary for me. Um but it still took me so long to figure out that I had anything mental going on, and it didn't take until I had postpartum depression for my family to recognize it and tell me to go to a therapist. And all of the pressures of the things that I've dealt with in life and all of the different anxieties, I finally went. This was in 2015. I finally saw a therapist. And I was put on a medication. I was diagnosed with post traumatic stress disorder, bipolar disorder, and postpartum depression. Well, we did not find out until later that I do not have bipolar disorder. But I did have post traumatic stress and postpartum depression. I was treated for, I would say, about 6 or 7 months. I was on this medication. I lost 30 pounds. I was like on top of the world. At that time, like, I think it was quite a while after that. After I was better, we decided to try for my son, and that was successful. I had to wean myself off the medication. I was sick. I had the brain zaps coming off the antidepressants. It was pretty crappy. Um, but I didn't feel like I needed them anymore, and that was in 2015. We're in 2019 now, and I haven't been on medicine since. So it was okay. Like I was doing fine all of that time. Of course, I would have the occasional freak out, but I was never like so bad off that I couldn't function like before. Um, so I never went back on anything. I did all right. I had a few episodes, like I said, but um, last year, I'd say the start of 2018 kind of sucked. And 2018 was probably like one of the worst years ever. Out of nowhere, I started having heart palpitations. Um, I also have a heart murmur. So in the back of my mind, like I used to get MRIs and stuff done when I was a kid. Um, I know that there's nothing like substantial about it. Like it's not gonna hurt me. It's not known to hurt anybody. But in the back of my mind, I always wondered if there was something wrong with my heart. And this spawned possibly the worst thing that I could have ever had in my life, which is health anxiety. And this is when it's going to get hairy to talk about because it's so daunting to me to talk about my health anxiety. um it's the worst. This beats out every horrible scenario I've ever thought in my head, like no unsolved mysteries, no storm, no vehicle on a rainy day, no boyfriend, no distrust, no bullying at school, no passing out could ever compare to the hell that I've experienced with health anxiety. And I have felt so alone with this that I can't, I can't even explain how alone I have felt. And I can't help the way my mind has went and how I've responded to it. But basically, I started having these heart palpitations January of 2018. And I always thought my heart wasn't beating right. It was beating out of my chest. I was obsessively checking my blood pressure. trying to hide it from everyone. I went to the ER thinking I was having a heart attack. I had it in my mind that I was going to be a statistic. I was going to be a 28-year-old female, and I was just going to drop dead and have a heart attack. I was always so scared, or that there was going to be something wrong with my heart, like there was going to be a valve messed up, and I don't know why I felt that way. I think I'm not going to sit here and go into full detail as to why I think I have these issues, because I will 1,000% blame social media for it. It's not just hereditary. It's not just having the phone at my disposal. That's a lot of it. Having Google. But I think a lot of it is social media, because there are so many people who share these articles about stuff like this happening, about young mothers being taken away from their families. And it took me up until recently to figure out like what was the root cause of all of it. But I got checked out, and I took everything like to heart at that point. Everything was cool, and I told myself that 2018 would be the year that I took care of myself, because with my husband and my 2 kids, I've kind of put my own welfare on the back burner for a while. So I said, okay, this is the year I'm going to take care of everything. I started running a lot for therapy. I love to run. So I was running a lot to kind of combat the anxiety and the heart palpitations, and I had accepted at that point that I was having anxiety. I was having chest pressure and all these things wrong with me. But I found out that it's all in my head. It's kind of daunting. It is something that I never would have thought really could ever happen, that I could just manifest like physical pain like that. I think that's one of the hardest parts to accept, is that my neurological and physiological stuff, like, I don't know. But everything was cool for a while. Like, I had felt like I had beat everything. I felt like I had overcome, and now, fast forward throughout this whole year of taking care of myself, I was going to the doctor, and every time I would go, it would be a new concern. So it like never really left. It just kind of manifested into something else. And I don't know. I don't even know why I'm going into this. I have 0 viewers right now. I should probably just stop. But I went through a lot this past year. A lot of learning, a lot of experiencing. I had a few oral surgeries, which at the time didn't really seem like a big deal. But they were kind of traumatic, and the recovery process was pretty rough. And I don't know if it was between that or like some issues that I had with my in-laws, which that's a completely different story for another chat. But I don't know if it was all of that or the surgeries, but I just completely bottomed out and went to the hospital again and again to get myself checked out, and worried myself so much that I was just gonna just die, like the end was near every time I woke up every day. And it was scary. I've been scared for, I don't know, my whole life. And I just got to a point one night I was really unable to function. I was not being my best self at home. I was not being my best self to my kids or to my husband or to my friends, rather. I was like completely numb. So I poured myself a bubble bath and put some lavender oil in it and made myself some tea, and I'm like, okay, time to get in here and hash your shit out. You've got to figure out what's gonna help you. Nothing was helping. It didn't matter if I woke up and told myself, you're gonna have a good day today. You're not gonna have bad thoughts follow you. You're gonna have a good day. So I had to sit there and look my fear in the face and to think of what was actually bothering me and what the problem actually was that my biggest fear in life is losing my family. And I think that that's that's a big fear for a lot of mothers and probably a lot of fathers. My biggest fear is losing my family, or my family losing me and me not getting to see my kids or be with my kids until, you know, I had to accept that I have absolutely no control over what happens to me, or just, you know, what God has in store for our lives. I had to accept that. And that's not something that I wanted to really accept, but I did. And I had to sit in the bathtub and pretty much face my fear of, you know what? If you die, you die. Like, you, you're not going to worry about it. And even though your family may grieve, everything's going to be okay. But I had to come to grips with that. And that's not something, that's not even a reality I even wanted to think about. That's not something I wanted to face, but I was wasting so much time focusing on the bad parts of it, or just focusing on the fact that it's gonna happen. I don't know when it's gonna happen, but I was trying to control everything around me, and the lack of not having control, like the lack of control in that situation, pretty much drove me crazy. And when I felt like, whenever I got done with that whole think session, that think tank, I like to call it, I was like, I felt like something had released from my chest. Like, I just literally laid on my couch in my robe, still wet from the bath, and just looked at the ceiling. Like, I was like in this state of sublime, like it was cathartic, and I just couldn't believe like the relief that I felt, even just having these thoughts and like facing my fears head on of, yeah, you're gonna die one day. You're not gonna be able to control everything that's around you. And once I got that into my mind, I started to feel a lot better. And every day that went by, I started to have to reassure myself a little bit less. And again, it's such a scary thing to know that your mind can betray you like that. That there's one side of your mind that holds all of your deepest, darkest fears, and there's another side of you that wants to process that, but your heart, like, your everything in you, like, won't allow those two things to work together. Maybe for some people, but not for me. It didn't work that way. And it was crippling. And I was not myself for a long time because of it. And because of these things, because of my inability to control how I felt, even though I did have this revelation, my complete inability to control how I felt in the way my mind was going, and I was spiraling into a big depression because of it. It wasn't just the shaking and the sweaty hands at that point. I was losing myself again. And I had to I had to call my doctor and was like, "Hey, um I think I need something for anxiety this time. This wasn't about depression. This was taking care of my anxiety for the very first time. I was on the antidepressant, but like I said before, it was not to treat anxiety specifically. We had ruled everything out, but my anxiety was truly never addressed with my first doctor. My second doctor, however, who has been with me through all of my heart stuff, all my heart scares and things like that, um, he put me on a new medication and said, come see me in a month. We're going to put you on this. Give it 2 weeks, and I guarantee you're going to start feeling better. I think it was maybe like 5 or 6 days into this medication that I started to feel different. And like I said, I was reassuring myself a little bit less every time. And I'm finally starting to feel happy with myself again. And even though I've had a headache, my appetite's been a little bit wonky, I felt like I can just coast now. Like, I'm not really worried about anything. Um, the only thing that's really bugged me was that, yay, it snowed last night. I didn't want anybody to have to drive too far in the snow, so I just made my grocery pickup a little bit closer to home. That's still, I think that's a part of me. I don't really know that that's anxiety. It's still like a part of me that I just want everybody to be safer or closer to home. But I haven't really worried too much about anything. I haven't been overly emotional or like want to cry all the time, and I haven't been beating myself up as much, and I've been happy enough to do this. So, hello, viewers. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here for me to talk about it, because it's probably the hardest fucking thing I've ever done is to sit here and talk about it. To sit here and get it out in hopes that the right person is going to click on Mermaid FM at the right time and they're going to hear exactly what they need to hear. Because you all don't know how many fucking hours I've spent on Reddit talking to people that feel the same way I do. I haven't been on Reddit since I started my medication. Not that there's any issues with it, but I just haven't needed it. Thank God. But I still get notifications like if somebody pops up and like posts in that subreddit that I was hanging out in, and the fact that I'm still getting notifications means that there are still people that are struggling with it. There are still people who have not found their way out of that darkness, and is the darkest thing that I've ever been through in my life. And I really thought that it was going to do me in this time. I'm not going to lie when I say that I was so consumed that I didn't feel like I could live in my own head anymore. Like, I felt like I would just be better off gone. Like, if I did take it in my own hands. Like, and I know that is a serious thing, but I've dealt with that my entire life, thinking that I just can't live in my own head anymore. Sometimes the dread is just too much for you. It's too much for people. And I'm just happy to be sitting here talking to you all and telling you all that there is a way out and that everything is temporary. It may follow you around for the rest of your life and manifest itself in different masks, but you can beat it. I'm not telling everybody to go out and get on medicine like I did, but I will tell everybody to maybe run yourself a bath. Put some lavender oil in it or whatever essential oil you like. And make yourself a cup of tea and look your fear in the fucking face and hash it out for yourself. Find out what's at the root of what is stemming this anxiety, whether it's a fear of losing someone or fear of losing, fear of your family losing you, or fear of failure, or, I think a lot of people who struggle with anxiety do struggle with not being able to accept that they're afraid of death. And I think that that's the reason why a lot of people do suffer. And that's a hard thing to get around. That's a hard thought to have, is to think about, well, if it actually happens, it happens. And this is what's going to happen after that. Everybody else is going to be living here and being okay. And it's a hard thing to think about, but it's easy to accept once you allow yourself to go to that part of your brain. But I'm just happy that I was able to do that, and that I'm able to sit here and talk about it. It's not really easy to talk about, and I probably sound as crazy as I feel sometimes. But I think it's important. I think maybe the right person will find me and they'll hear it. And maybe what I'm saying might help them, because more than anything, other people made me feel better. Sometimes people saying just the smallest thing would make me feel better. Nobody that I knew, really, but people would make me feel better. So I guess I have kind of finished the story. So I don't know if there will be any more parts of this. I've been talking for like a straight 42 minutes uninterrupted. But if you're out there and you're listening, and the word strictly serotonia or the word anxiety has brought you here to me, look your fear in the face and try just try not to be afraid to just let your mind go there, because it's your mind. It's taking you there, but it's not actually taking you there. You just don't let fear consume you. I know how you feel. Don't let fear consume you, because it is all consuming and it will make you want to do things that you don't want to do and turn you into a person that you don't know. And I'm 100% here. I'm 100%. I've been there. I understand. And if anybody ever needs to talk, who's listening, feel free to drop me a chat or send me a message, a whisper, I guess, if you will. And I will be happy to talk to you about anything, any parts of anxiety or depression or mental health that you're struggling with. I do feel that I can help. I do feel that I can understand. So if you ever need anything, I'm always here, whether I know you or if I don't. Um, but I want to thank you all for being here and the viewers that I've had tonight. I appreciate you all allowing me to have this outlet and to be able to share with you all. And I will definitely have some more streams probably in the next few minutes. We may do a very happy game stream with one. But this will be concluding, for now, my installment on Serotonia. And I say for now because I don't know if I'm going to have a bad anxiety day or if I'm going to have a panic attack, and I may want to come talk about it. I might. It's nice to have the option. So, but thank you all again for listening. Be sure to give me a subscribe or a follow if you've been here, if you've enjoyed. And I will catch you all on some gameplay very soon. Everybody take care, and just know you're never alone.